Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our latest in the Wednesday webinar series, 2025 Advocacy Solutions. The advocacy landscape is changing a lot, and we're very fortunate to have JD Haig here with us today from Tele-Town Hall. JD is on Capitol Hill almost every day, so he's learning about the latest trends, the latest things that are going on, the processes that people are going through trying to get bills passed that are different today than they were even a few years ago. And he works with clients day in and day out on finding the right solutions to really drive their advocacy programs and communications home with those who need to hear the message. So I'm pleased to introduce JD Haig to you today, and he's going to walk you through 2025 advocacy solutions that have been effective for him and his clients. JD?
Great. Thanks so much, Matt. And we'll make this 30 minutes or less. That is a guarantee. Everyone has a lot of work to do. Today we're going to be talking about kind of some common challenges, right, left, center, no matter the issue. Everyone's kind of facing similar challenges, particularly here in 2025. Some solutions we've seen of people who've used us, and then clients, who we've put in touch with other, vendors about kind of what has been working so far this year. And we'll go over some of our tools and other tools that we have seen within the industry that have been particularly effective through Q1. And now, we're almost at Memorial Day. So today, just going to be talking about the changing landscape, different solutions we've seen that have been effective, and also some solutions that I don't think are very effective. I was on Capitol Hill this morning, hence the tie, I'm seeing some people do some old stuff that I don't think is resonating very well. Staffers have told me it's not resonating very well. Just some quick background on Tele-Town Hall, who don't know. We've been in and around Capitol Hill for 20 years. We offer a full suite of communication solutions, text, survey, large, small audience. First, we talk to you about what your goals are, and we figure out how we can work better with you. Worked with tens of thousands of different associations, levels of government, members of Congress, senators, presidential candidates. We've seen a lot in our time. I'm JD Haig. I'm a native Washingtonian. I was born in Georgetown, which makes me a very rare, native to DC. And it's changed a lot over my, we'll call it a short lifetime. There's my contact information right now. We're also if you need to jump early, feel free to schedule a 15-minute meeting with me. We can go over kind of what you missed on this and how we can possibly work together. So here's some kind of common challenges. Traditional lobbying efforts, the days of Tommy Boggs taking folks out to his duck blind on the Eastern Shore, sadly, are not as prevalent. Lobbying's changed, associations have changed, getting Congress's attention have changed. There are some tools that have worked for a long time that are still working great. Fly-ins are incredibly valuable, but things are getting very expensive. And when you set the days of setting an advocacy agenda for a year of, we're going to do this for Q1, Q2, Q3, those now kind of have to be updated daily in 2025. And with the, hectic pace that President Trump has brought to Washington, D.C. First issue, traditional lobbying efforts have grown out of favor. The fundraisers are still important, but being able to turn key constituents into your advocates, grassroots, is essential. And step one for any of that is you have to have the right data. We see a lot with, people will send out a text message and they'll have a dear and then, the field for the first name. And if it's the wrong first name, no one's going to read your great content. And advocates create great content. And so making sure that people actually read that starts with the data, starts knowing with who you're texting, who you're calling, who you're reaching out to. If they're going to be a good advocate on your behalf, and who they know. So getting to know them and also who they might know. That is step number one. 73% of people say lobbyists and special interest groups have too much influence. Everybody has a lobbyist. They probably just don't know it. But this is why turning voters, constituents into advocates is a great first step. Fly-ins. I was on Capitol Hill this morning, as I said, saw a lot of people with name tags walking around, and those are still incredibly valuable. But you're only engaging, you're only having your grass tops, your top advocates, your 2% of people engaging in those fly-ins who are, getting fired up, and then they're going home. And what's happening? They're kind of losing track. They probably have some cool stories at church and around the dinner table, but you're kind of losing that momentum. Making sure you have those core advocates come to DC is great, but you also want to make sure you're expanding that circle, that you have educated and motivated folks back in district who are ready to swing in to action at a moment's notice. The other thing about fly-ins, DC's gotten really expensive. My wife works for a major consulting company, and they now try to avoid DC just because hotels have gotten so expensive here. It's not a big city, so rates can continue to go up as more and more people try to come to Washington to talk to their member. 25% increase expected cost of travel in 2025 versus 2024. I would imagine in DC this is even higher. Grassroots and grass tops outreach is harder than ever. In some ways, this is true. In some ways, it's never been easier. If you're using old methodologies, it can be very hard. Newer technology, newer data acquisition, data appends, data hygiene, using text, calls, social media, it can be easier. The best kind of use case I've seen is making sure that people are getting multiple touch points about an issue. You guys are great educators and you create great content. You want to make sure that people are receiving it in a multi-channel way. And that is very much where a text to a Tele-Town hall can be very beneficial. When I was growing up, we had Clinton Care, and there was a great ad on TV. It was a family around a table, very nervous about not being able to afford their health care. And that was the main thrust of the advocacy, and it worked. But as more and more people cut the cord, become kind of decentralized in their media consumption, making sure that you are approaching a well-identified grassroots activist through many different channels is essential. Fourth challenge here, the Chevron decision. This feels like Chevron Supreme Court decision, which basically said we're going to make, Capitol Hill is going to have to make more of the rules as they're passing the bill, as opposed to the government agencies. This means that you've got to make sure that you have your strategy in place before a bill is even introduced. You need to make sure that you've got a well-identified and educated and motivated constituency of voters back in key members' districts who are willing to mobilize at the drop of a hat, not the drop of a hat, but with quick notice to advocate on your behalf with their members. Because as the law is being written is critical. Post passage, you still have time to work on it, but making sure that you're there as it's being written is so important. And this is really kind of where a Tele-Town hall is really good, because you are educating tons and tons of people very quickly. And really, you're turning them into your own advocates. It's great. Timing is essential, right? 50% decrease in legislation. As that bill is being written, you need to make sure you're not going to have a lot of other shots to affect the change that you need. Lobbying associations have gotten a bad rap, being undemocratic. One core competency of every advocacy association, lobbyists that I know is they are great educators. They're great at creating content, but if it's not being seen and heard by the right people, you're not wasting your time, but it's kind of a waste. Uh, Making sure that, on a Tele-Town hall, people are becoming engaged, you're tracking that information, and um, at the end of an event, they're leaving more educated, and you're leaving with great data that you can pinpoint exactly. Okay, this is who we need to follow up with, perhaps with a live call or a text message, if legislation comes forward that you all need to affect. This is some stats that came out of a recent Tele-Town hall. 92% of people felt better informed. So you are empowering constituents and voters with information that they're going to leave, A, with a higher opinion of your association, and B, motivated that when called upon, they will act in the best interest in their own best interests and also in the best interests of the association. Quick recap, been very fast. Data, so essential. Updating voters and constituents directly in key members' districts, so important. Don't go through the media. Well, you can, but as I said, multi-channel. Scalable outreach, whether it's reaching out to 500 or 5 million, each solution has to be tailored a little bit differently. And we love to work with clients to make sure that we are giving the best possible solution because, some might be better served by more targeted outreach, live calls, patch through to Congress, while, some other organizations might really benefit from a Tele-Town hall to key members of constituents. Thanks so much for attending. As I said, I'd make this quick. I don't know if anybody has any questions or not. As I said, if you'd like to schedule a meeting, link is in the calendar in the chat, and be happy to extend a 25% discount for anybody who wants to schedule a meeting from this webinar.
Great, thanks, JD. As a reminder, if you have questions, just drop them in the Q&A. We're happy to answer those. And again, JD's happy to have a complimentary consultation one-on-one with you guys. JD, a couple of quick questions, I guess, for me. I've heard you talk a lot about, how the legislative cycle has changed. And Tele-Town hall, there's a lot of solutions here, right? There's a lot of things you can do, a lot of different communication solutions. So, where does somebody start? Is there kind of an easy basic package that you could recommend that says, look, these are the 2 or 3 things I would put together to see if we can drive some results as a test in working together and, kind of timing and, is there anything like that? Is there like a base package or something that somebody can start with?
Yeah, and so I would probably start by asking what members you want to, get through to, and then we would take a look at their districts and what might motivate them. If we can generate a list of 10,000 constituents who vote in 3 of the 4 last primaries, those are going to be people that member wants to hear from. You start by educating them, then you do a call to action, then you watch the data as people come through to that member, which gives you great, presentation materials, we'll call it, when they go to meet, when an association goes to meet with that member, like, look, we did a Tele-Town hall to 10,000 404 primary voters. 92% of them don't like XYZ. That's incredible ammunition. And it's real-time data that can be backed up. It's pretty cool.
Nice. How long does it take to put something like that together?
Speed in 2025 seems to be paramount, and we certainly appreciate that. Please just give me like 24 to 48 hours heads up. That we try to be as flexible as possible, but I have a 2-year-old at home who does require some life sustaining activities on my part.
Awesome. So I've had the benefit, others haven't on this call, but I've had the benefit of sitting in a lot of these webinars. And I heard in one of the other ones for higher education, like sending a text or with a photo, a text with a video. Sometimes, we've had clients see up to 11 times better results on their calls to action, depending on what mode or method that they use. Is there anything you're seeing, text or otherwise, this year that's been extremely successful? It seems to be hitting right now in this current environment.
Every association has not every, a lot of associations have great content. When you send that out via text and you're doing a call to action of, patch through to a legislative office or committee, that works great, especially if you are tracking who is patching. If it is just if the vendor you're currently using is just kind of throwing up their hands and being like, look, we sent the text message, we hope they're going to call. That's not good enough. You need to know who is receiving and then acting on those messages. The content that these associations put out is pretty amazing. You're like drawn to tears over issues that you didn't know about before you opened the website.
If people who are interested in working with you or working with Tele-Town Hall, if they already have some solutions, like they have a texting vendor in place, or if they have email vendors in place or other communications vendors in place, do you have to replace those, or can you work with those? Like, can they have a town hall but utilize email to help fill it, and then we can utilize different channels, communication channels? Like, can we work with existing?
Absolutely. And, particularly when it comes to media buying and any kind of digital marketing campaign, there are people in this space who do a lot better than we do, particularly digital marketing. And we would love to work with them and really kind of fit in with that outreach. As I said, multi-channel approach to every single key voter is essential.
Nice. Okay. Thanks, JD. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we're happy to give you some time back. JD, thanks for sharing that today. I know you're in the thick of things, so hearing what's going on in your day-to-day battles on the Hill is always good to hear.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thanks so much for the time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye, guys.